Wealth can buy almost anything: mansions, private jets, influence, even silence. But there's one thing money has never been able to purchase: true loyalty. When billionaire real estate mogul Richard Hamilton lay on his deathbed, surrounded by machines, doctors, and greedy heirs, his last request stunned the world. He didn't ask for his family, his business partners, or even his lawyers. He asked for David Okoro, a black security guard who had quietly worked in the background for decades. What followed would reveal betrayals, rewrite Billionaire's legacy, and prove that sometimes the humblest man in the room carries the power to change everything. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support this channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss stories like this one. Now, let's begin. The sterile smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the private hospital suite. Richard Hamilton, once a towering figure in global real estate, now looked fragile, his body swallowed by white sheets. His breathing was shallow, each rise and fall of his chest accompanied by the steady beep of the heart monitor. Doctors moved in hushed tones. Nurses checked IVs. Outside the thick glass doors, his children waited, James in his sharp Italian suit, scrolling through his phone as if the stock market mattered more than his father's fading life. Victoria, designer handbag clutched against her side, rehearsed the tears she would soon perform. Inside, Richard opened his eyes with effort. His lips moved. The attending physician leaned closer. "Mr. Hamilton, do you want me to call your children?" Richard shook his head weakly. His voice, a gravelly whisper, pushed through cracked lips. "David, call David Okoro." The doctor froze. Who? David Okoro was no millionaire, no executive. He was a man who lived in a modest apartment with peeling paint on the walls and second-hand furniture. The son of Nigerian immigrants, David had grown up in a tough neighborhood where crime was a constant shadow. His mother, a nurse, instilled discipline and compassion. His father, a war veteran, had taught him integrity and courage before passing when David was only 16. At 6'3", broad-shouldered, and steady-eyed, David had the presence of a wall, unshakable, dependable. For over 30 years, he had worked for Richard Hamilton as a security guard. Not the kind of guard who disappeared into corners. David had been everywhere, at the mansion gates, at international conferences, even standing watch during tense negotiations in foreign lands. He had seen Richard at his most arrogant and his most broken. Unlike others, David never flattered the billionaire. He never begged favors. He spoke to him as a man, not as a god. And that honesty, that courage, had built a trust no amount of money could buy. It was a Thursday evening when the hospital called. David sat at the dinner table with his teenage daughter, Esther, a plate of rice and beans between them. She was telling him about a school project when his phone buzzed. "Mr. Okoro, this is St. Matthew's Private Hospital. Mr. Hamilton has requested your presence." Immediately, David blinked. There must be some mistake. His children. No mistake. He asked for you. He insists. Esther looked up, worried. "Dad, what's going on?" David forced a calm smile. "Just work, baby girl. Finish your food. I'll be back soon." But inside, unease twisted his stomach. Billionaires didn't summon guards to their deathbeds. Something deeper was at play. The hospital hallways buzzed with fluorescent light. As David approached the private suite, he felt the weight of hostile eyes. James sneered, stepping forward. "What are you doing here?" "Your father requested me," David said evenly. Victoria's lip curled. "Impossible. He should be asking for us, not the help." The doctor opened the door and motioned David inside, ignoring the protests. Richard's eyes lit faintly at the sight of him. "David," his voice cracked, weak but warm. "You came." David knelt by the bed. "I did, sir." "You asked for me." Richard gripped his hand with surprising strength. "Not sir. Never sir. Just Richard. You were always the only one who saw me as a man, not as a wallet." Richard's breath rattled as he spoke. "Do you remember? Nigeria, 1994? The men who came for me." David's eyes narrowed. He remembered. During a business trip decades ago, armed kidnappers had stormed their convoy. David had shielded Richard with his own body, taking a blow to the shoulder. He had fought back with nothing but his fists and courage until help arrived. "You saved me, David. Not just my life, but my soul. Do you recall the factory deal?" David nodded slowly. "The one that would have cost thousands of workers their jobs?" "Yes." "My greed blinded me. Everyone around me told me to proceed. You alone said, 'If you do this, you'll build wealth on broken backs.'" David swallowed. He had spoken those words bluntly, risking his job. Richard had listened. He had cancelled the deal. "You gave me something no one else dared, David, truth." Tears pooled in Richard's eyes. "My children, they never loved me. Only what I gave. I built towers of glass and steel, but I failed to build a family. You were the son I never admitted I had." David's throat tightened. He had guarded the man, yes, but never considered himself family. Richard coughed violently. Nurses rushed, but he waved them off. "Listen to me. Promise me something. Guide them when I'm gone. Teach them what loyalty means. Promise me, David." David hesitated. He was just a guard. How could he guide billionaires? But Richard's eyes pleaded, desperate. Finally, David whispered, "I promise." Richard exhaled, a faint smile touching his lips. Hours later, he was gone. The Hamilton estate gathered in a mahogany-lined office. Lawyers in dark suits shuffled papers. James and Victoria sat forward, eager, impatient. The will was read aloud. The children inherited wealth, yes, but with conditions. David Okoro was named executor of the estate. The room erupted. "This is insane." James slammed the table. "A guard? Controlling billions." Victoria hissed. "Father was delusional at the end. We'll challenge this in court." But the lawyer adjusted his glasses. Mr. Hamilton's mind was tested repeatedly. The document is ironclad. Mr. Okoro is the legal executor. David sat in stunned silence. He hadn't asked for this. But the weight of Richard's dying promise pressed on his shoulders. Taking the role wasn't easy. The Hamilton empire sprawled across continents. Hotels, skyscrapers, investments. Everywhere David turned, he found corruption, executives pocketing millions, heirs making reckless deals. James tried to sell off assets for quick cash. Victoria funneled money into luxury brands. Workers were underpaid. Contracts rigged. David's steady presence shook the empire. He demanded accountability, fairness, transparency. Board members scoffed at first. But as Richard's chosen executor, his word carried legal power. Slowly, resistance turned into grudging compliance. One night, David uncovered documents. James had been bribing officials to seize land illegally. Victoria had siphoned funds into offshore accounts. He confronted them. "You dishonor your father's legacy," David said firmly. James spat. "You're nothing but a bodyguard. Stay in your place." David's calm voice cut through. "My place is where your father asked me to be. By his side. Even now." The words stung deeper than any slap. Months turned into years. Under David's guidance, the Hamilton Empire shifted. Workers received fair wages. Communities were rebuilt. Scholarships funded poor children. Hospitals rose in places where Hamilton Towers once loomed. At first, James and Victoria resisted. But slowly, they began to see something they had never seen in their father: respect from ordinary people. For the first time, the Hamilton name was spoken with gratitude, not bitterness. And they began to change. Years later, when his task was done, David stepped down. He returned to his modest apartment, his daughter now grown, studying law. He refused luxury, choosing instead the quiet dignity of an honest life. The world would remember Richard Hamilton as a billionaire. But those who knew the truth whispered another name: David Okoro, the guard who carried a legacy. And so, the billionaire's last dying wish wasn't for wealth, power, or recognition. It was for the presence of the one man who had given him something money could never buy: loyalty, honesty, and courage. David proved that true greatness doesn't always wear a crown of gold. Sometimes, it wears the uniform of a guard. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our next powerful story. Because in the end, it's not the money we leave behind that matters. It's the lives we touch.